You may have thought that by now Donald Trump's cabal of nepotism would have run out of relatives to hire and appoint.
I like nepotism.
But in some shocking and breaking news, his pyramid of power has found one more relative to add to the downline. And the reason it's shocking is this very lofty assignment is being gifted to a family member with a criminal past. In Trump's first term, he made the very strange move of appointing daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared, both real estate moguls, to key advisory positions within the White House. And he continued the trend by shoehorning family and friends into other key roles, despite their lack of experience and qualifications. I have concluded that he does this as a result of his projection and general distrust of others. He knows he can't be trusted, so the only people he feels comfortable trusting are those he can see at the Thanksgiving Day dinner. In just a minute, I'll reveal the latest family member to be promoted into politics, but first, let's take a closer look at the Trump nest of nepotism, using Jared Kushner as an example in this very compelling and very related expose by the Washington Post.
Donald Trump, throughout his career, has always relied on a very small circle of family and a couple of close associates. And in Jared Kushner, he has both. President Trump has given Jared Kushner an extraordinary portfolio of responsibility. He has 10 years in the business world. He ran a newspaper, The Observer in New York. He ran a real estate empire. But that's basically it.
Jared was thrust in the spotlight at a pretty young age. His dad went to prison when he was in his mid-young 20s. And Jared had to take over the company. He was chief executive when he was 25 and still in graduate school. And the market collapsed almost immediately afterwards.
So Kushner had to renegotiate the debt that he owed.
And Richard Mack, according to other people who were in those negotiations, was one of the most resistant people to that idea. And unhappy that Jared came back saying, now I'm only going to pay you this. Jared at the time owned a newspaper, the New York Observer.
He went to the editor of the Observer that he'd hired, a woman named Elizabeth Spears, and told her that there was a person named Richard Mack and that there was a negative story about him.
And he gave me this tip that if it had checked out, it really would have been an Observer story. And then the reporter came back to me and said, it's just not true. There's nothing there. We'd meet weekly and he'd be like, so, is there any progress in that story? And I would go, Jared, there's just everyone we talk to tells us it's not true.
It's a sort of an example of the way that Jared's two type of businesses interacted. He would occasionally use the Observer as a sort of a weapon against his enemies.
He is a sort of harder-edged version of what you see out there, and more like Trump in the way he deals with folks.
And now for today's breaking story. Do you recall the mention of Kushner's father going to prison? Well, guess who was just gifted the role of ambassador to France by Donald Trump? The NBC headline read, Trump picks Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner, for ambassador to France. Charles Kushner, the father of Trump's son-in-law, pleaded guilty to 18 federal charges in 2004 and was pardoned by Trump in 2020. And here's the NBC video.
In just the last few minutes, we have seen this announcement by President-elect Trump announcing that he has picked Charles Kushner to serve as ambassador to France. He says in a statement in part, quote, that Kushner is a, quote, tremendous business leader, philanthropist, and deal maker who will be a strong advocate representing our country and its interests. And if that name sounds familiar to you, that's because Charles Kushner is the father of President-elect Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's married to his daughter, Ivanka Trump, the younger Kushner serving as one of Trump's senior advisors during his first administration. But if confirmed, because remember, this ambassadorship is still a confirmable position, he will bring to the table a very controversial past. Remember, in 2005, he pled guilty to tax evasion, witness tampering, as well as making illegal campaign donations. He also served 2 years in federal prison. And then in 2020, Trump pardoned Kushner for those crimes. So this election really following in this pattern, in this history of President-elect Trump choosing those most loyal, choosing family members to serve in his administration. But no doubt that Kushner's past and his history is going to be an interesting topic that senators could bring up during those confirmation hearings that are expected to begin in January, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And no mention of any of that, that latter part in the announcement, of course.
She said could bring up. You think? Of course they will bring it up, but in the upside-down world of Donald Trump, where conflict of interest, election tampering, illegal hush money payments, and crimes against women don't seem to matter, would a crime severe enough to get a prison sentence really disqualify someone from representing the United States to one of our most important allies? And that reporter also downplayed something else. So I'll give Chris Christie, who prosecuted Charles Kushner, the final word to better describe the potential ambassador's crazy criminal activity that absolutely should be considered.
Christie prosecuted Kushner's father for tax evasion, witness tampering, and illegal campaign contributions when Christie served as a federal attorney. Charles Kushner, a wealthy real estate developer, pleaded guilty to 18 charges in 2004.
If a guy hires a prostitute to seduce his brother-in-law and videotapes it and then sends the videotape to his sister to attempt to intimidate her from testifying before a grand jury, do I really need any more justification than that?